Hello and welcome back to the Great War. Last time we were unable to get back to Brussels while it was under attack thanks to a series of exciting glitches, meaning our capital has been taken by the Germans and we really have no chance of getting it back now. So I decided to go east instead, taking Stuttgart for no particular reason, and immediately realising that the only safe place for us is down south in the territory of our Italian enemies. The first step to getting there is to take out this group of various Austro-Hungarian units. Surprisingly, despite the enemy having lots of different armies with just a couple of units in each, they didn't all charge at me individually. They bothered to form up in the middle of the map, which was unexpected. At least their mortars were late to the show, so my cav quickly took them out. However, once the enemy form their line and start walking at me, things don't go as I expected. I tried this experimental formation with a load of machine guns in the centre, but obviously I didn't inspect the ground clearly enough because our men are actually shooting into the back of a hill, and that means the already low accuracy of the machine guns is going to be exacerbated, and basically we didn't really kill the enemy as they advanced towards us, and now we're in trouble. Plus, there's an additional problem. Some of my machine guns were actually in front of my firing line. This is really the worst possible setup. And some of them die as I try to move them back across the trenches in the effect we saw previously as well. So this is bad. I'm trying to get the machine guns further away from the hill that's just in front of them so they don't get caught in melee so easily. My men nearby supporting are either killing my own guys or are not doing anything at all, so that's not helping very much. And basically we're in trouble here. The AI doing its usual brain fart, just melee charge the centre strategy, finds success because our centre was in disarray, and now the enemy flamethrowers are in melee with my machine gun and mortar crews, both sides not being used very effectively. The only redeeming feature to this situation is that we have way more men than they do, so we can just hack our way back. I'm going to reorganise our lines so they're not shooting at each other quite so much. That little echelon formation was perfect for all of my own men to shoot each other. A really bad setup. It was only like this because I didn't know which direction the enemy would come from. Anyway, after some disaster, things go okay because, as I said, we have numbers on our side, we can cut down all of the enemies that are here, but we did lose pretty much all of a machine gun crew in that melee and took damage on our mortar and the other machine gun. A close victory is all we can achieve there. The loss of that machine gun is particularly annoying because at this stage in the campaign we are not going to be recruiting new units anytime soon, so anything that we lose is something we can't replenish if and when we get our guys back into a town. Since we have achieved victory though, we can go on with our plan. The way is clear for us to keep going south. The only outlier is our howitzer team, which is kind of stuck up there. It's too slow to catch up and the enemy are around, so they may be in trouble. The main force though can keep strolling towards Switzerland. The aim is to take on that big Italian army and just break in before the enemy takes Strasbourg and Stuttgart, which would cause us to lose the campaign. However, here at the start of the next turn, things are looking pretty good. They didn't bother my howitzers, so the howitzers can start catching up. Strasbourg is somehow not under siege anymore. The Germans just gave up on the siege and walked off, so that helped out quite a bit, and while Stuttgart is under siege, this gave me the confidence to play things a little bit slower, because if we spend an extra turn on the way to Switzerland, we can sit on a bridge, allow our howitzers to catch up, and potentially make the Italians attack us in this position that really favours us, and indeed, that is the case. This small army comes over to attack, and that's going to draw the big army from Switzerland to come and attack us as well. Loads of conscripts, nothing too special, and while our army's not in very good condition, the fact that we're defending a river crossing means the balance bar isn't that much to be worried about. Their initial army was just a couple of units, including some field guns that I sent my cav to go take out right away once they get around to gradually shooting them. But it's not these field guns that are the problem. They're reinforcement armies coming onto the map quite close to the river crossing in the south, and they've got a couple of field gun units on a small hill, and they've got mortars, and they were pounding my position here, and I was actually taking substantial losses. It was getting to the point when it looked like the AI could accidentally do the correct river crossing strategy and just annihilate my men before their infantry try and cross the river. So I started running away, trying to draw aggro onto units that were further back so the enemy would be less accurate. Not much else I can do really because we can't push towards their artillery even with my cav hidden on the other side of the river. That means all we can do is wait and tank losses, but it is worth tanking those losses because once the enemy finally does start crossing that bridge, the infantry battle will be very much one-sided. Here we have conscripts just charging into die and back they go, beginning the now familiar cycle of the AI just attempting the same thing over and over again and gradually dying. We are also gradually dying thanks to the enemy's artillery, of course, but we can hold on, we can keep going, we can keep absolutely annihilating those conscript armies. And the good news is the enemy have taken some toll on their own side with their artillery by the looks of things. I think what must have happened there was men walked right in front of the gun barrels as they were firing and caused the explosion to go off in front of the guns. Very good stuff. I've pulled my men back here to try and reduce the extent to which they're getting annihilated, in particular by the enemy's mortars who have moved up quite close to the river and are now firing at such close range that their accuracy is a real problem. At least the enemy are still pushing men across the river. They came in waves for this battle, so after we killed that first wave of conscripts, they did hold their troops back as if they were thinking whether they should actually do it again, but eventually they did. They came across and got shot as intended. And with this, most of the rest of the enemy army gets taken down, but not all of it, and that's annoying. There are still a couple of units out there looking to stop my cav from going around, and a few units hanging around with the enemy's mortars right at the other end of the bridge, really close to our line. And as I said, they're inflicting enough damage that it's becoming an issue. One of our units defending the trenches has taken enough losses now that they might actually rout if they take a few more. I'm going to pull those guys out of the line because we do have some men to spare here, especially with all the enemy's men now being dead. I finally got my cav to bypass the enemy infantry in the field and get behind those artillery pieces to wipe them out. That's easy enough, but the mortars were still causing issues for us. I wanted to take them out as well, but having the odd enemy infantry unit around their side of the bridge means I just can't get close. A single volley will devastate my rifle cav, and there a partial volley at long range does do some damage. We have to just hide and let the mortars shoot us for a while. Finally we got to a point when the mortars had moved so close to my side of the river that I can shoot across the river and get to them. Plus I moved my machine guns over from the other river crossing and they have the range to take out the mortars from our side. Once we did that, the dregs of the enemy infantry got taken out and the battle ends in only a close victory. It wasn't really that bad. We lost something like 400 men and the enemy lost over 3,000. But it wasn't the complete one-sided slaughter that you might get from a river crossing just because the enemy's artillery was doing some damage there. At least we've achieved our strategic objective. The garrison at Switzerland has been weakened, so now we have a pretty good chance of breaking in even with our own weakened force. We can also bring up our artillery since we did wait that extra turn, so that's all good. Plus, I realised that we can actually get the enemy to surrender here. It says at the bottom they're willing to surrender. So I thought, well, we'll do that since we'd rather not take any more losses right now. This will cause the remaining enemy troops to still be alive, but they do walk off and just start taking attrition in the mountains, so it's not all that bad. They're going to take some losses, whereas we are going to replenish now that we have some territory. We're only really getting away with this because the enemy haven't bothered to take Stuttgart or Strasbourg, which is now under siege by the Austro-Hungarians. They're really hesitant to make those easy siege attacks, giving us the time to get over here. So the question is, will we be able to hold out here for any amount of time? I waited for 3 turns to try and replenish my army, with the plan of actually moving on to the south, but that plan's been put on hold by the fact that the Italians eventually sent another army up to besiege us, and our replenishment hasn't really been that much even after 3 turns because we're also bankrupt, so we're getting desertion every turn at the same time as replenishment. I think we're just about making a profit in troops, but not very much. So of course all I can do here is try to break out of this encirclement. But things are harder than they look. Apparently Hindenburg himself is somewhere around here with a gigantic army of mostly cavalry, so that's adding on to the fact we're going to have to fight a machine gun bunker, a ton of artillery and snipers from the Italians. The campaign is very much hanging in the balance right now. We need this battle to go really well to have any hope of doing anything after this. Generously, old Hindenburg just sends the cavalry from his army to attack us right as the battle starts. That's going to allow us to chip away at a large amount of the enemy's quote-unquote strength before things get going. Not that cavalry really constitutes strength in a World War I scenario. So yes, they trot at us, and my machine guns, while apparently having no line of sight by the looks of things, are gradually killing them. The thing about machine guns is that their accuracy is so low, they spread shots over so wide an area that as long as they're not directly obstructed in front of them, they can do indirect fire because the shots just randomly flying up into the sky will fall down somewhere and kill guys downrange. So they're doing okay, even with their not very good placement. And as the cav get closer, they'll have to deal with our rifle lines and entrenchments as well. And obviously that's not going to go very well for them. So huge amounts of enemy cavalry are killed, and that's about half of the German army dealt with before the battle even really gets started. Then the Italian infantry come over to make their attack. They've got lots of not particularly good infantry, so this is not too much of a worry. And their formation's a bit messed up as well. They've got units behind each other, which means they're probably just shooting into the backs of their own men. They have very ungenerously not attacked my line completely head on. They're slightly at an angle, meaning my left flank is under pressure, and of course we don't want to move at all because we've got our trenches here. It ended up resolving though because the enemy's right flank just walked up to my left flank. It seemed they were going for an extremely slow melee attack, and because they walked in slow motion half the time, we were able to take them all out before they got there. By the looks of things, if they'd actually just ran the whole way, they probably would have made it, since we only just got rid of them with them walking it. Anyway, so with that, the Italians' army is pretty much destroyed. They've still got loads of random misc units at the back, like artillery, but the stuff attacking us here and now is gone. Now it's time for the rest of the German army to show up, all of the infantry. And this is where the enemy's main strength lies, because as I've mentioned before, German infantry is better than ours, and in fact it outranges us. This is giving us a lot of trouble, especially on our right, where these Jaegers are shooting at my machine gun crew and the infantry on the end of the line, and we're not doing very much damage back to them. Our machine guns, I think, are firing at them. They're just kind of useless at anything but very close range, so it's not killing them very fast. We start taking so many casualties, not only to that, but other attacks down the line, such as on our left flank, that I decide to fall back from the trenches. In the centre it was okay, because the AI messed up and walked too close, so we managed to kill them. But we've actually taken huge numbers of losses down the line, even with our trenches, just because our men can't really fire back at the enemy. They're either out of range or just on the edge of it, so it's just not happening. Therefore, by falling back, waiting around for 10 seconds, and then going back to the trenches, the AI is drawn forwards a little bit, and now the units are going to be in range, so we'll have an easier time of fighting. Our numbers will be on our side, even if our guys aren't as accurate as the enemy or what have you. The machine gun's probably killing that one unit that's just running right at us. On the left though, things are looking bad. One unit, the guy on the end of the line, the unit on the end of the line I should say, has taken so many losses from fighting the enemy that now their return fire isn't going to be very powerful, so we're having some trouble actually clearing out the rest of the enemy there. I tried to support them with my cavalry who were waiting around by the edge of the map, but this did not go well at all. Making a rear attack isn't really viable in this mod because units have a 360-degree arc of fire. If you get near a unit from behind, the men will just turn and shoot instantly. It's not like in other Total War games where they have to keep facing one direction. So our cav are damaged and just run away, having not achieved anything. In the end, I have to pull back my left flank because it's taking an absolute pounding. And ultimately we're going to have to just leave the trenches. That's the solution to this situation. And since the rest of the enemy has been routed off the field, we're safe enough to do that, so we fold over and start hitting the enemy on the flank, and now we'll win. We do still have plenty of numbers on our side, so even with those losses taken, we can finish off the last few enemy units, but it certainly hasn't been a clean affair. We did take more losses than I had hoped, and several of our units are on the verge of destruction. And it's not exactly going to get better, because now we have to walk across the whole map towards the enemy's artillery to try and take them out. At the same time, I had a couple of units going up the left side of the map, and they stumbled across some snipers out there. The enemy, as we'll see, actually have quite a few hidden sniper units around the map. But this is a time when having cavalry is actually a really good thing, because the snipers are too few to damage them by shooting volleys into the cavalry charge. So the charge makes it, and then in a quick melee we wipe out that nice high value unit. Now I can see there's a couple more over there near that wall. The problem with going near them though is that the enemy's machine gun bunker is just on the other side of those trees. I need then to try and keep the camera close to it, because the only way to know if it's firing at us is to hear it firing. It wasn't firing at us up until about right now. When it starts, our cav got too close unfortunately, and they are annihilated immediately before they could cheekily take out those snipers. There are actually 3 sniper units standing on top of each other there. Pretty good, because they're probably technically blocking each other's line of sight and aren't really firing because of that. Anyway, my response was to take all of my remaining troops and put them on the other side of the enemy army. There were some more snipers there, but they'll quickly get shot since they're in range of our regular rifle units. Although actually some of my units are out of ammunition right now from the battling earlier on, and some of them are on the verge of routing, as I said, and we've taken a load more damage that I didn't really show here, because during the 20 or so minutes walking across the map to get here, the enemy's field guns did occasionally hit us, and the odd direct hit does serious damage. Now our goal is to try and take out those field guns and the other MISC units without getting absolutely annihilated by the enemy's machine gun bunker, so we have to carefully walk towards it and try to stay out of its guesstimated range. Hindenburg is routed off the field and some flamethrowers are easily taken out. Then I move up my machine gun crew to try and shoot at the enemy's artillery pieces. This was because I didn't want to advance my infantry anymore in case the machine gun bunker on the enemy side started firing. But it is a slow affair to take out an artillery crew with a machine gun because they're so inaccurate. The shots only very occasionally hit them. It works eventually, but you can see in the bottom right we're actually running out of time. The battle's about to end. So we have to end things right now. There's no time to try and blow up the enemy's bunker. We have to just run at it. So we're going to test this theory I had, that a bunker can be defeated with a human wave attack, because you just have to get close enough for it to be in melee and then it will stop shooting you. The problem is, it does shoot you while you're running at it, of course, and we lose multiple units to this. I was trying to micro there to get the enemy to shoot into the back of their trenches to waste bullets, but it did not quite work out since we routed too quickly. Our men are exhausted and their units are already damaged, so really this is a bad setup to try human wave attack on a bunker. But it does work just because we had enough men to do it. We take extreme casualties running up to it, but once we're close it will just stop firing, and then there's some sort of weird circular melee going on that technically results in the enemy being defeated in some way, and that's going to bring an end to the battle. A heroic victory, although really this was not the most heroic of victories. We lost something like 2/3 of our army in that battle. So while the siege will be broken, and we've taken out that random German army, mostly anyway, we're also in trouble right now. Checking the stats, I noted my machine guns got a whole load of kills. They just sort of sneakily kill enemies because you can't see what they're firing at or whether they're hitting anything at all. It's hard to tell what they're doing, but I think they did contribute quite a lot just firing at the enemy's infantry during the battling early on. Anyway, so as I said, we've broken that siege, but what can we do from here? Our army's half dead, or more than half dead to be exact. And we're going to be in trouble if we stay here. My goal was to try and go to Milan, because there the city is big enough and rich enough for us to actually sustain our troops, but there are quite a lot of enemies in the way, and of course we're still bankrupt, so we're taking attrition, and the replenishment we get here isn't very large, so it will take us a long time to get back to any sort of good health. Not an ideal situation, I'm sure you'll agree. The leftovers of the Italian army are wandering around, had the chance to intercept there, but don't feel like giving battle now that we're on the verge of death. So they set up next to us. The survivors of the Germans are also nearby, just standing outside the town. They're even weaker than the Italians, so I thought I'll actually go outside and challenge them, but in this case they retreated. We won't bother pursuing because we just desperately need replenishment right now. We need to sit in the town and try to be a little bit less dead. Although that German army does just come straight back and we got the chance to intercept it, I decided to do it with an auto-resolve because the balance bar is really far in our favour here. All those scraps of both the German and Italian army come into the fight and get taken out. It leaves just a couple of half-dead units in each army. Nothing much to worry about, but then again that's not what we're worrying about right now, is it? We happen to have lost Stuttgart and Strasbourg to them surrendering, so now we're in really big trouble. The only hope is that the enemy won't attack us. That's what we need. We need our town to not be under siege so we can replenish, get some troops together, and then try and make some sort of an attack to get ourselves into a better situation where we're not bankrupt. I sent our men out to kill off a couple of Italian field guns. Did it via an auto-resolve, which was a bad idea because we lost 100 or so men and could have done that for free with a manual resolve. I just really couldn't be bothered, I was too fatigued. These battles that we've been showing have all lasted a really long time and have been very stressful. It just doesn't seem like it when you're presenting it in parts and in retrospect. So yes, I was on the verge of just quitting the campaign because it's going so badly at the time of playing it. With the Germans now on our doorstep once again, with a full stack moving up, it's basically time for an all-or-nothing move. We have to take Milan right now. We probably could hold Switzerland against at least one army, but that wouldn't achieve anything because we're still bankrupt. We would just be stuck there forever. So to have any hope, we do need to take a bigger city like Milan. By the start of the next turn, there are 3 German armies in Switzerland. The town isn't under siege for some reason. The enemy just walked right up to it. Maybe they ran out of movement points or something, I don't know. But it just means we just have to keep going. The Italians, very generously, moved a lot of the stuff that was defending Milan just off somewhere else. Some guys over to the west there by the looks of things. So actually we do have the perfect chance to try and take it right now. However, it's never that easy. We get glitched out once again. Our army, for reasons unknown, is not allowed to initiate an attack. I can't really tell why, but yes, the UI for a siege doesn't even appear. So now what do we do? Well, I was at a bit of an impasse because we really need to make this attack right now because we could lose the campaign at any time, and of course we're taking attrition constantly, so it only gets harder if we have to wait. Tried various different things and various different combinations, but it just wouldn't bring up the UI for a siege. So I got frustrated and just left it like this, with just 1 unit of cavalry besieging the town. I guess this sort of worked out because it made the enemy sally. The problem is, while we do have some troops available, they're all in the reinforcement army, so we're not going to be able to deploy our trenches, and our mortars, machine guns and artillery aren't involved at all for some reason, even though they don't appear to be that far away. So that balance bar that's suggesting the enemy has a huge advantage might just be telling the truth this time.